In this video, I'll show you how to quickly and easily create a responsive grid system for your UI designs in Figma. If you watch until the end, I'll share tips on how to use the grid properly in your projects. Let's get started. First, we need to create 3 frames in Figma, one each for desktop, tablet, and mobile. I'll hit A on my keyboard and select desktop from the pre-built frames. For tablet, I'll choose iPad mini, and for mobile, I'll pick iPhone 16. Now we need 2 types of grids, horizontal and vertical. These help keep our spacing consistent in both directions. Let's start with the desktop version. Select the frame, go to the Layout Grid section in the Design Inspector, and hit the plus button. Change the type to columns, as we always use column grids for horizontal alignment in web design. For desktop, set the count to 12 columns. While some designers prefer setting the type to center for desktop and stretch for iPad and mobile, we'll use stretch for all to make it responsive. With stretch, you can adjust the margin and gutter. The gutter is the space between columns, and the margin is the space around them. The default is 0, but watch what happens when I increase it to 50, you'll see empty space on the sides. For desktop, I typically use a 32-point gutter since we have more space. For the margin, it depends on your container size. A container is the area that holds your content centered in the frame. Looking at this design, you'll notice each section has a container that helps maintain a unified look across the project. Container size recommendations vary. Some designers prefer 1140 points for desktop, others like me use 1280 points, and some go with 1100. For tablets, I use 680 points, and for mobile, 360 points. It really depends on your project and how much margin you want. Let's set our margin to 80 to achieve that 1280 point container width. For the vertical grid, select the frame again, add another grid, and change it to rows. Set the type to top since we want the grid to start from the screen's top. Set count to 1000, this ensures the grid continues as you extend the frame, offset to 0. For the height, I prefer to use 8 points, especially if you want to use an 8-point or 4-point grid system, and for the gutter, I can set it to 8 as well. Now when you go ahead and create an element, let me show you what happens. Let's suppose you create this rectangle. When you try to move it just like this, as you can see, it snaps to the nearest row or column. And when you modify its dimensions, it again snaps to the nearest row or column. That's how you can make sure that your numbers are always going to be divisible by 8. What I'm going to do is select this desktop frame. I can either create a layout grid style, or I can just select these grids by hovering over this area. Click once to select this particular layout grid, hold down the Shift key, click once again to select this layout grid, and copy them. Hit Ctrl+C or Command+C, select this iPad frame, hit Ctrl+V or Command+V, and there we go, we have our vertical and horizontal grids. We need to make some adjustments. As for the vertical grid, we don't need to change it for any of these frames because our vertical grid should always have the same properties and preferences regardless of screen size. But what about our horizontal grid? I'm going to click on this icon here and set the camera amount to 8. Also, since we don't have that much space on a tablet screen, I'm going to decrease this margin in gutter. I'll decrease this margin to 32 like this and the gutter to 16. Using this grid, we can use the whole available width of this screen. Since we don't have so much margin here, that's why I set the margin to a lower value than what we had for desktop. On desktop, we had much more room. For iPhone, I'm going to select these 2 once again, copy them, and paste them here. For mobile, we are going to decrease the column count to 4, and I'm going to set both the margin and gutter to 16. Because it's recommended not to go below 16 points, some designers go to 24 or 32, that's fine, but I highly recommend not going below 16 points to maintain a safe area around your content. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but all the values I used for these grids are divisible by 8. Here I have 32 and 16, here I have 16 and 16, and for desktop, I have 160 and 32 because I know I'm going to use an 8-point or 4-point grid system. The great thing about these grids is that they're responsive since we set the type to stretch. If you set it to center, it won't be responsive. But since we set it to stretch, they are responsive, and that's exactly what we needed. As I mentioned before, when you create any shape, it could be a rectangle or anything, even a text layer, it automatically snaps to these rows and columns. But when you use the arrow keys on your keyboard to move your elements around, you can move them down by either 1 pixel like this, or if you hold down the Shift key, you can move it down by 10 pixels or move it up. To fix this issue, you can simply head over to the Figma preferences and from the quick actions, look for Nudge Amount. When you open it up, this window allows you to specify your small nudge amount and your big nudge amount. If you decrease it to 8 from 10 and try to move your elements down or up using the arrow keys and Shift key, you'll see it's now moving by 8 pixels. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content. See you in the next one. Stay connected.